Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to Crafting Compelling Messaging that Drives Impact. My name is Colin Mahan, and I'm a director of high growth impact entrepreneurs and head of sponsorships at the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. And for those of you who may not know, the NASDAQ Center is a nonprofit improving access and knowledge in entrepreneurship to advance economic progress for all. As you're going to see in the chat in just a moment, the NASDAQ Center provides programs, resources, and exceptional mentorship to help entrepreneurs fuel prosperity, no matter where their journey begins. Be sure to check out those links and resources in the chat. Now, we're going to launch a few polls to take a temperature gauge on how all of you are doing today. We use all of this information to guide the programs we provide for you, this global community of entrepreneurs. So the first one, how are you feeling about your business? Are you optimistic? Let us know, and thank you for voting. Also, if there are specific topics or challenges you'd like us to create resources for, drop them in the chat and we will take note. A couple more housekeeping items. First, let us know where you're dialing in from by dropping your location into the chat. We'd love to see where everyone's joining us for our time together today. Also, we're going to have live Q&A near the end of this session, so please feel free to submit those questions at any time using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We'll do our best to get to as many as we can. All right, while you're answering these last couple polls, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the incredible support of our corporate partners. The work that we do at the center wouldn't be possible without all the generosity and belief of our partners and funders, including NASDAQ, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, KPMG, Walmart, the Asia Innovation Hub, Wilson Sonsini, the Nurit Foundation, KKR, and BPM. We're deeply grateful for their partnership and hope you'll hope you'll join us in sharing that appreciation as well. All right, this last poll, let's see how we're doing. Looks like sales is at the top of the key. So good news is we're going to be talking a bit about that today. See where people are coming from. Maryland, Atlanta, Houston. Welcome, y'all. Concord, love it. Alabama, San Diego, New York, North Carolina, New Jersey, love it. Lots of different time zones here. New York City, Los Angeles. Ooh, Buenos Aires, Louisville, Kentucky, Florida, LA. Love that. Well, thank you all for participating in those polls and for letting us know where you're dialing in from. We've got a great session for you. So without any further delay, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our special guest. Ada Lien is the Global Brand Builder, Strategic Operator, and Executive Advisor, and a coach at the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center and mentor. Ada, so excited to have you. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Colin. It's great to be here today, and so lovely to see so many people coming from around the country. I'm Kira from New York City, so hopefully there's some New Yorkers here as well. Big shout out. Okay, let's see. I'm pulling up my deck.
Looks
Great.
great.
Okay, thanks, Colin, for confirming. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I really appreciate you making the time on this Tuesday morning or afternoon. So today's session is about messaging that lands, messaging that helps the right people understand your value quickly, believe it, and take action. Messaging. So before we dive in, I want to hear what's on your top priority for messaging. You could just feel free to throw in your thoughts in chat.
Reach, cash, awareness, education,
Great.
conversions, take action, clarity and connection, impact, conversions.
Great. Thank you, Colin. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I want to make sure we hit each and every one of this, whether it's reach, clarity, or impact. So let's get started. So this is what we'll cover today. This session is designed to be practical. I know everyone here is incredibly busy, so I want to make sure that you leave with a framework that you can use immediately. First, we'll focus on how to clearly articulate what you do, for whom, and why it actually matters. We're going to do this with one anchor message. And if you can't say what your core message is clearly, everything else becomes all the more difficult. Next, we'll look at how you shift your message so your audience, not your product, is the hero. We'll cover how to adapt the emphasis of your message for different stakeholders without losing consistency. Then we'll walk through a simple, repeatable system you can use, a system that you can use across conversations, pitches, and channels. We'll also talk about how to move beyond feature-led messaging and use both story and language that creates recognition as well as trust. Finally, we'll look at how to use real-world feedback and refine your messaging over time to make your messaging both sharper as well as credible, and then more effective as you continue to scale your business. So my goal is that you walk away today with clarity. I think someone mentioned in chat that you are looking for clarity. And I hope that it's something that you can apply the next time you're in a conversation, writing a pitch, or talking to a stakeholder. So why is this important? From my experience, a surprising number of strong products struggle not because the product isn't good, but because people don't clearly understand its value. And there's a reason for that. Research has actually shown that people decide whether they like something, whether it's relevant for them, in just under 8 seconds. So if your message isn't clear by then, you've likely lost the room, no matter how amazing your product actually is. So let's define what we mean by messaging. Messaging is the set of words, ideas, and proof points you use to make your value immediately clear. You do this across conversations, pitches, as well as platforms. Whether someone hears you for 30 seconds or 10 minutes, they should walk away with the same core understanding, even if your emphasis changes. So, this is why messaging matters so much early on in your business. When messaging is unclear, sales slow down, partnerships stall, and investors hesitate. Oftentimes, when I meet with founders, they assume that the issue is product when it's actually message clarity. So, you hear a lot about storytelling in startups. I want to be clear about how we'll use it today in our next hour together. We're not talking about storytelling as narrative for its own sake, but we're using story structure because it actually helps people make sense of information quickly, who this is for, what problem it solves, and what changes if it actually works. I like to think about it this way. Storytelling is a delivery system for clear messaging. So I want to use myself as a quick live example to show how these same facts land a bit differently depending on how they're framed. So my name is Ada. I lead Rising Horse and I advise founders on strategies, execution, and leadership. Here's the traditional way I could introduce myself: where I went to school, the companies I worked at, and the capabilities I built over time. But this doesn't really give you a reason to lean in or stay curious. This is what we call resume style messaging. We see some founders default to this style when they pitch, listing features or credentials. Now, let me share the same background framed a little bit differently. I come from 3 generations of entrepreneurs. In the early 1900s, my family emigrated from China to Vietnam and built small businesses to create a new life. When Saigon fell, overnight, my family lost our home and our businesses. We were one of the first families to escape by helicopter and come to America. 2 months later, I was born in a refugee camp in Arkansas. Growing up, I felt deep gratitude for my American life and a strong desire to give back. In college, I studied child psychology because I wanted to make a difference early on in someone's life. Same person, same life. On the personal front, this is my family, who I call my superheroes. So, what you hear now is different narratives. This version helps you understand why I care about impact. And this is also about helping the listener understand what drives you and why your work actually matters to them. So for me, great messaging is really about saying the right thing first, depending on who's leaning in and who's listening. And that starts with one big fundamental shift. When I look at the photo on the right with my family, it really does remind me that I'm not the hero of my own story. The heroes in my life have always been the people around me, the ones who made the hard choices and kept moving forward. And I'm asking you to make this same shift in your messaging. And here's the shift. Your audience is the hero. They are the heart of what you do. You, as the founder, you are the one who understands their problem, you provide clarity, and you help them succeed. And different stakeholders step into the hero role in different ways. For consumers, they're the hero of experience. Your team, they're the hero of execution. Customers are the hero of ROI. Your partners, these are your distributors. These are the hero of opportunity. And investors, these are the hero of scale. So your message doesn't change who you are, but it changes who the story centers on. And your job as the founder is to help each stakeholder see themselves, see their problem, and see a clear path forward. So when founders ask me, how do I even begin to message my brand? This is where I start. There's a foundational framework that mirrors how people naturally make sense of information. So it ensures that your message flows from understanding to belief and then to action. First, the problem. This is about identifying the pain your audience feels so deeply. It isn't about your features, it's not your roadmap. It's the real lived frustration that makes them lean forward and say, yes, that's me. What frustrates them? What feels unresolved? If your audience doesn't recognize themselves here, nothing else matters. Next is insight. Insight answers the question, why does the problem even exist? Why hasn't this problem been solved before? Insight reframes the problem in a way that the audience hasn't quite articulated yet themselves. What new way of seeing the problem unlocks progress? And this is where you, as the founder, show your understanding. It's not just that the problems exist, but why it continues. And finally, you now introduce the solution. You not only list, it's not just a list of features, but it's a clear path forward. Your product and service is clear, and this logical answer helps the hero move from frustration to progress. And then we end up with results. And this is about showing the transformation. What's different on the other side? This is where you can be tangible and be concrete. What improves? What becomes easier? And what changes in their world? Results make the story real, and that's what makes the message stick. So when you establish empathy and credibility with your audience through this shared truth and experience, you build a connection with your hero. From there, you build trust. If the problem feels true and the insight feels earned and the outcome feels real, connection just happens naturally. It's this connection that earns you the right to offer a solution. So this sequence that you see here, problem, insight, solution, and results, is not just a framework, but it's also a story arc. And your core message is the story spine. When your core message follows this arc, it becomes much easier to understand, easier to remember, and easier to adapt across different audiences. So everything else that you communicate hangs off this arc. And it's this arc that keeps you grounded as well as authentic. So once you have your story spine, the problem, insight, solution, and results, the next question that founders typically ask is, how do I use this day to day? This is where the messaging house comes in. Think of your message as a structure. The foundation of the house is your anchor message. This is the single most important idea you want every single stakeholder to understand. It's built directly from your story spine. If this foundation isn't solid, everything else wobbles. So next are your audience-tailored versions. This is where many founders think they need different stories. You really don't. You're really opening different rooms in the same house. The story stays the same, but what changes is what you lead with, depending on who's leaning in and who's listening. Your value pillars. These are the themes that hold the house up. These are the 2 to 3 benefits that stay true no matter the audience. They keep your message consistent as it travels through conversations, decks, and channels. Proof points. Proof points are the walls of your house. They make your house feel both credible as well as real. Proof is about relevance. The right proof reduces risk for your audience target. And finally, the call to action. Every message needs a door and a clear next step. If you don't tell people what to do next, momentum stalls. So it's this messaging house that gives your story spine structure. Your messaging house also determines how that message shows up consistently and across your various audiences. So oftentimes when I hear that founders struggle with messaging, it's usually because one part of this house is missing or tries to do all the work. So now that we've walked through the structure, let's get practical and make it usable. Crafting your message happens by deliberately working through your building blocks. Think of it like sketching, putting the core idea on the easel before you even begin to refine it. We start with our anchor message. Your anchor message is the foundation. It's the one idea you want every stakeholder to walk away with. If this isn't clear, nothing downstream will be. So the anchor message accomplishes 2 things. First, it creates internal clarity for both you as well as your team. And secondly, it creates consistency externally across your various audiences. So this is the simplest and most useful structure that I found. We help who solve what problem by what we do so that they can what changes. With the who, choose one audience you're speaking to today. If you can't say this clearly, your audience won't be able to repeat it. And it's the repetition that scales your message. Some common watchouts, just to be mindful of, is when you make who too broad. You want to have a narrow target audience. It's also describing a symptom versus a real tangible problem that your target audience confronts. Another watch out is leading with technology in what you do. And finally, using vague language when you have an impact. So I just want you to also keep in mind that this is just a working draft tool. It's not a final tagline. It's using this tool that helps you create discipline in the work that you iterate. So we're making the message true before we make it tight and refine it. I'm going to show a couple of quick before and after examples so you can see the shift. Okay, here's an example. We're a cloud-based AI-powered platform that streamlines workflows, integrates with existing tools, and provides real-time analytics to improve operational efficiency. Here's one said another way. We help operations teams eliminate manual reporting so that they can close the books in days, not weeks, without hiring more people. Which message lands? Notice the shift here. We don't add complexity, but we made the outcome much more tangible and we made the friction more visible. Days, not weeks, on the right is a concrete outcome. Without hiring more people is a real constraint. This helps you keep authority and it avoids some hype. Here's another example. Our products uses clinically tested ingredients, advanced formulations, and sustainable packaging to deliver superior results. Said another way, we help people with sensitive skin get visibly healthier, younger looking skin without stinging, redness, or harsh ingredients. Different business, but you notice a pattern. Notice what changed here. We didn't promise more on the right, but we kept trust high without offering these miracle claims that you sometimes see. We made the pain very specific and the outcome much more tangible. And here, healthier feels a little bit more real. This is what we call language that moves. So I want to pause here for a moment. Everything we've talked about so far has been about structure, but structure alone doesn't move people. It's language that moves people. We talked about storytelling earlier, and storytelling is really about language that helps someone see themselves in the story, language that makes them feel this was made just for me. Language that moves does three things. First, it makes the problem feel true, not abstract, but real, specific, and recognizable. Second, it makes the outcome feel vivid, not better results, but what changes in their day, what changes in their body, their workflow, what makes them feel more confident. And third, language that moves makes the choice feel easy. It reduces friction and it answers the unspoken question, why this and why now? So, one way to look at it is through a simple test. If your message sounds like a product description, while it may be accurate, it won't pull people in. If your message sounds like it understands the person and the moment they're in, it creates desire and momentum. So we start with the anchor sentence and then we translate it into language that a real person would actually repeat. Let's look at a few examples. How about instead of improve efficiency, we try get hours back in your work or stop wasting your time on? People don't feel efficiency, but they do feel time, relief, and momentum. Instead of AI power platform, why not try so you don't have to or without needing to? Movement comes when you actually remove a pain, not naming a capability. If the person that you're speaking to cannot picture the change, then it doesn't feel real. And instead of we provide, maybe you can try now you can. Conviction really creates confidence, and hedging creates doubt. So as you write your core message, try to sound true. And what you're really aiming for is something that your customer could hear once and say, exactly, that's me. They get me. So let's be hands-on. Draft your anchor message using the framework that we just described. Aim for clarity and write it in a way that you'd explain to a friend. As you write your core message, look for one place where you can swap abstract verbiage for something more concrete, a list of features for friction removed, polished language for something that's a little bit more human and relatable. Let's take 2 minutes and try. Okay, so if that exercise felt hard, that's actually a good sign. It means you're being disciplined about clarity, and clarity takes hard work. So this is usually the moment when we talk about, I have a core message, and now how do I talk about it differently to my stakeholders without losing consistency? So the answer is you don't change your message, you change with what you lead with. Think of your core message as one house. Different audiences walk in through different doors. They're entering the same structure, but they're just oriented toward what matters most to them. So, this framework helps you tailor your message by answering a key question. What does this audience need to hear first in order to lean in? So, remember, your listener is the hero. For your team is the hero of execution. They need clarity, direction, as well as purpose. For them, lead with why this work matters. What does success look like? And how their role connects to the bigger picture. Oftentimes, leaders end their arc with their team, but I actually like to begin here. When messaging is unclear internally, execution shows up externally, and investors evaluate both the founders as well as the team they built. Consumers. Consumers are the hero of experience. Lead with how it feels, what improves, and why it actually matters to them. For your customers, they're the hero of value. Lead with ROI, efficiency, and the problem that you remove. Partners, your partners are the hero of opportunity. Lead with leverage and what's possible when you two work together. And finally, investors. Investors are the hero of scale. Lead with clarity of vision, momentum, and durability, why you are built to last. So you see that you have the same core message, the same truth, but it's a different emphasis. What you want with your framework is flexibility without drifting from the core. So now that you started telling your message by audience, there's an important guardrail that you need. And this is where value pillars come in. Think of value pillars as the backbone of your messaging. These are the core benefits you deliver consistently across each and every single audience. Value pillars do three critical things. They keep your message consistent, they make your story easier to repeat, and they prevent you from over customizing for each and every conversation that you have. So, as you think about creating your value pillars, ask yourself, what do customers thank you for? What do partners highlight when they talk about you? And what do you hear investors lean in on when they ask follow up questions? These patterns that you get from your research are really your pillars. And for your pillars to be successful, you just need two to three for clarity. If you use more than that, you have a laundry list and you risk confusion. So once you're clear on your value pillars, the next question is credibility. Why should someone actually believe in what you're saying? This is where proof points come in. Proof points are not about convincing someone that you're right, they're about reducing risk for the person who's listening. A proof point is any evidence that makes your message feel safer to believe in. It answers the question, has this worked before? And has it worked for someone like me? So you want to be careful about overwhelming people with proof. Too many stats, too many features, they actually increase confusion. So good proof is relevant, good proof is specific, and good proof is easy to grasp. I like to think of it this way. One strong proof point is actually better than five weak ones. And your proof can take many forms, as you see here. It can be usage data, it can be a founder credential tied to the problem that you're working to solve, or it could be a clear before and after result. The key here really is choosing proof that matters to your audience, your specific audience. And again, this is where audience tailoring matters again. Investors look for different proof than customers, partners look for different proof than your team. So you have the same value pillars, but different proof that speaks directly to your audience. So once you have your clarity, your value, and your proof, the final step is momentum. And this is where the call to action comes in. A call to action is telling people what happens next, taking the guesswork out for them. A good call to action answers one question. What's the most logical next step for this audience right at this moment. When the next step is unclear, even interested people stall. So the call to action should match the audience and the moment. For consumers, it might be try, explore, or experience. For your team, it's often align, prioritize, or execute. You see other examples listed here, and you can see that a strong message doesn't just end with information, it ends with direction. It ends with a call to action. So to go back to the beginning, if you think back to the messaging house, the anchor message delivers clarity. Audience tailoring gives relevance to the specific audience you're speaking to. Value pillars deliver consistency. Proof gives credibility. And your call to action that sparks momentum. Messaging that lands moves people forward. So let's imagine an early stage founder building a finance operations platform for mid-sized companies. The anchor message is here. We help finance teams close the books faster by eliminating manual reporting so that they can make confident decisions without burning out their team. The who is clear, the problem is tangible, there's a logical solution, and you deliver a tangible and real impact. This one sentence is doing a lot of work, and it's doing it clearly. Your audience tailored versions are multiple one. For investors, for example, you can say, we're solving a repeatable, expensive pain point for mid-market finance teams with a scalable platform that replaces deeply embedded manual workflows. This works because of the clarity, the market logic, and the scale. This is what investors care about. For your value pillars, no matter who you're talking to as a founder, three things here stay true. Speed with faster close cycles, clarity with confidence in the numbers, and sustainability. Sustainability with less burnout and fewer hires. These pillars don't change, only which one you lead with. For proof point, a customer-facing one could be cut close time by 40% in just 3 months. For call to action, a partner call to action could be launch a pilot integration. Again, your call to action isn't a push, it's direction, it's movement. So you can see that this founder didn't create multiple messages. This founder created one clear message, then expressed it with discipline, making message scalable. So let's ground this in a real example. In honor of our Winter Olympics, let's talk about Nike. Nike isn't only an iconic brand, but it's also a disciplined one. At its core, Nike's message is simple and remarkably consistent. Nike exists to unlock human potential through sport. This doesn't change across products, campaigns, or audiences. But what does change is what they emphasize, depending on who's listening. For consumers, Nike centers the hero of experience. The message isn't about shoes or apparel, but it's about identity. Nike's consumer messaging says this is about you, your effort, your limits, and your progress. The product is there to support the journey and not define it. Nike sells belief before it sells its gear. So let's ground this in a real example of what it looks like when a brand truly centers the consumer as the hero. So Lunar New Year celebrates the year of the horse, which begins a week from today. This is Nike's Lunar New Year video. Watch how the story is told and pay attention to who the hero is.
新年快乐！我妈说不能收，你要已经放你兜里了。是这般的新年快乐！谢谢我，但我不能要。我不用了。总是这般的，别客气。新年快乐！拿着上学用，不要了。拿着，拿着，还想你不客气呢。 检查没有别客气，别客气。红包，没钱，谢过，那咱回家吧。姑姑，新年快乐！不客气，不客气，不客气。
So this story is about the lived experience of everyday people. The consumer here is the hero of experience, and Nike is the brand that actually understands that experience. The film follows the story spine. The problem is the pressure, expectations, and generational differences. The insight here is that progress and tradition can actually coexist. And the impact that Nike delivers is confidence and self expression. So, what Nike does well here is that it makes the consumer seem real by reflecting their reality and showing that they understand the moment they're in. And the consumers feel like the story was written for them. For Nike's internal team, the hero is execution and purpose. The message shifts from inspiration to alignment. This work matters, and your role as part of the team contributes to something bigger than the single product launch. When internal messaging is clear, sharp execution follows. For customers, your retailers and your distributors, the hero is value. Nike leads with demand, brand pull, and consumer loyalty. So the message becomes when Nike shows up, people show up. And that's a value story. For partners, Nike positions them as the hero of opportunity. The message emphasizes cultural relevance, reach, as well as co creation. This isn't just about distribution, but it's about being part of something influential. So, partnership messaging is about what becomes possible together. Here's an example. Nike partnered with Cactus Jack to expand relevance, reach, and cultural impact. With partnerships such as this, Nike messages to its partners that Nike protects cultural credibility and Nike amplifies voices that shape culture. For investors care about scale and durability. Investors need conviction. So, to answer the audience need, Nike leads with brand strength over time, global relevance. This message is one of confidence. Now, let's apply what we've talked about to your own business. Take your anchor message and adapt it for one single audience. Focus on what the audience needs to hear first to lean in. Let's take 2 minutes. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in the last 40 minutes. Now let's move to traction. How do you turn feedback into a force multiplier for your brand? This is how. Every question you get, every praise you receive, every objection you hear, that's feedback. And feedback is raw messaging insight. Founders get feedback constantly from stakeholders. And most of this feedback lives in social media, in ratings and reviews, and in your meetings. So when you listen to feedback, listen for words people use to describe their experience, questions they keep asking, and objections that come up repeatedly. Every aha moment is language you should be borrowing. Every repeated question is a signal that your message isn't actually clear yet. And every objection is a value pillar that hasn't been emphasized. So take this qualitative insight to refine your messaging. One reason this matters so much is that messaging is about trust. When people feel heard, trust follows. And when your messaging reflects the language you're actually hearing, people recognize themselves in it. And that recognition is the foundation of trust. When you incorporate feedback into your messaging, three things happen. You reduce confusion. People don't have to work hard to understand you. You reduce skepticism. You address objections before they're even raised. And you also reduce perceived risk. Your message feels grounded in reality and not a dream, not an aspiration. So messaging is shaped by real conversations versus assumptions. Again, if you go back to the messaging house, think about it this way. Feedback sharpens your anchor message. It clarifies which value pillars actually matter. It tells you which proof points to lead with. And it also helps you choose the right call to action. Here's a simple habit that's worked for me in the past. After every important conversation, think about jotting down one question that you were asked. Think about jotting down one praise you heard, one objection that you heard. These are all inputs into your next version of the message. Great messaging isn't created in isolation. It's actually refined time and time again in conversation. And when you take all this together, when you combine structure with discipline and feedback, your messaging can be a growth lever. There's a hard truth about leadership. What we've seen is that leaders who do not listen actually lose relevance. When leaders don't listen, a few things naturally follow. Your messaging drifts away from reality. Teams execute against assumptions and not hard truths. Customers feel misunderstood. Partners hesitate. And investors lose confidence. Over time, we see trust eroding. So listening is an active discipline. This is a simple loop that strong leaders can use to turn listening into traction. First, you collect. This means intentionally gathering feedback from your stakeholders, including all the praise, all the questions, but also the confusion and the hesitation. Next, you cluster. Look for patterns. What questions repeat? What feedback comes up again and again? And what language do people naturally use? Then you translate, and this is where true leadership shows up. You take those patterns and you distill them into clearer messaging, sharper value pillars, and better proof points. And finally, you test. You put all that work, you put your updated message out into the world. You put it in conversations, in pitches, on your website, and with your team. So messaging really does get stronger over time by listening, distilling, and iterating. Leaders who listen build trust. Leaders who translate build momentum. And when you do this consistently, time and time again, your messaging becomes a leadership advantage. Okay, so let's pull all of this together and summarize our key takeaways. Number one, make your audience the hero. The biggest shift I want you to take away is this. Your messaging isn't about you. Your audience is the hero. They're the one with the problem. They're the one with the ambition. Your role as a founder is to be the guide who helps them succeed. When you center your audience, your message immediately becomes clearer, more relevant, and more engaging. Start with one clear anchor message. If people can't quickly understand what you do, who it's for, and why it matters, they won't lean in, no matter how good the product is. So you start with one clear anchor message, and then everything else that you work on ladders back to that. Build a simple messaging system. Strong messaging is a system. Anchor message, audience specific emphasis, your value pillars, your proof points, and a clear call to action. When all of these pieces work together, you're no longer reinventing your message every time, you're adapting it with attention. And then finally, turn feedback into fuel. Messaging gets better in the real world. Pay attention to the questions people ask, where they get confused, and what resonates with them. That feedback is fuel for your messaging. So in sum, founders who consistently listen, refine, and test build clearer, stronger, and more credible brands over time. So I'm happy to take questions.
Awesome. Ada, what a wonderful framework. And as I saw in the chat, a bunch of people are just cruising right along with you. So if you haven't asked your question for Ada yet, please do so in the chat. But we're just going to roll right along. And we also have some pre-submitted ones too, just in case as well. Okay, Ada, so lightning round. Not a question, but a comment. This is great.
Thank you.
Let's see, doing the example of adapting my core message of we help people leaders build high-performing cultures through talent development and inclusion so that culture becomes a competitive advantage. Oh, I guess they wanted to hear your feedback on that.
Can you say that again? I'll write
Yep.
it down here. Sorry.
Yep. We help people leaders build high-performing cultures through talent development and inclusion so that culture becomes a competitive advantage.
Yeah, that is very succinct. So I get what is your key difference, who you're addressing, and how you win and lead. So the proof points, I think you can strengthen it when you actually talk about the value pillars and the proof points tailored to the audience. So what specifically do you mean by high performance culture? What is the talent development? And then how does the leader win in it? So for your team, for example, what does it mean for their own career progression? For your partners, what tools do you actually deliver to help them drive that progress? I think that is a great starting point, and then continue to refine it through your value propositions as well as your proof points. But it's a great start, a great way to hang.
Awesome. Another question here. Can you have an anchor message that includes two different client/audience types?
So I think what this question is about is clarity. It sounds like there's an increase in complexity. So I think the best way to address it is to talk about what is that unifying direction for the audience type? What is the common ground that will help them engage with you? So I think sometimes founders think about everything at once, but if you can find that unifying space, what problem space do both these audiences live in? And then what you can change to create this solution for the audience. So there is a way to find that commonality so that you address the audience's concern and then nuance it based on their needs via your value pillars and your proof points.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of questions about different audiences here. Another one, um, what types of strategies do you recommend with presenting our messaging to different audiences aside from our anchor message? Should we establish partnerships? Dot, dot, dot.
So from your anchor message, you have a clear internal anchor message. As you have different audiences type, you refine it and you address what their needs are so that you're super cohesive. I think Nike is a great case study, how Nike has so various stakeholders, but we all know Nike because of its discipline. So I hope you can find inspiration in what Nike has done over the years via its partnerships and understanding what you stand for and your value proposition, and then how that echoes with your partnership. It also goes back to your brand architecture. What is your brand unique point of difference? What is your strategy and who you want to address? Then determining from there which are the specific partners. Sometimes saying no is harder than saying yes. Oftentimes it is, and it's having this clear discipline and this narrow focus that will strengthen your brand. So to
Mhm.
answer the question, it's understanding what partners align with your values and then how to articulate that with them and create a stronger collaboration so that you have that authenticity and clarity. So I know someone had asked, I saw in chat about being authentic. Being authentic is a way to build trust. And when you build that trust, you saw earlier that that's reinforcement for your message. That's a force multiplier. So that trust helps foment word of mouth engagement and social media presence.
Perfect. Let's see. Oh, this is an interesting one. How do you manage feedback and not get overwhelmed by negative or constructive comments?
Yes, I'm sure we're hearing feedback constantly. I was inundated with a lot of feedback, and I'm sure you as founders get a lot of unsolicited feedback. It's overwhelming. I'm not going to lie to you. It's overwhelming. And one way that I've taken in feedback is I always try to have space. You take a step back, you take it for what it's worth. And I believe in this approach from Japan called the Kaizen approach. There's always something that you can do better. You can constantly improve and iterate. So if you take it with that spirit and take space from it, you can use it as fuel. And it goes back to that framework where I showed the pattern recognition, clustering feedback. So it's trying to cluster the feedback together to surface the themes, do it from an objective perspective, a way to build your business and scale your business, and address it and tackle it. Another thing that I found helpful is that when you're a founder, oftentimes it gets lonely up there. It's an icy job, but it's helpful to have someone who you can brainstorm with, spitball with, um, your second in command, family, friends, to help you unpack it and talk it through to help you so you don't feel so overwhelmed. Another
Mm,
tactic I've used when I take down feedback, because again, I know you get a lot and it is very overwhelming and it can be a little bit paralyzing, is making sure that you always have time for yourself. So I earmark time in my calendar, thinking time, processing time. That's probably a time when you can sit and take in the feedback and then think of action. Because you have to think as a founder, not only are you working on the business, not only are you working in the business, but you need to constantly work on the business. Think about it strategically, think about your vision, where you're headed.
yeah, that's super good advice. And yeah, Kaizen used to be on a big sign at the gym I used to go to.
Oh, I love that. At your
Um,
gym, it's like a believe. Do you remember Ted Lasso? He had the sign.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're almost at time, but I want to get to at least one or two more of these questions. What are your thoughts when it comes to the big ask, when it comes to addressing audiences with your core message slash ask?
What do you mean by that when it comes to
The
addressing?
example is hosting a workshop or fine-tuning your lessons during your healing journey. The big ask. Maybe it's the CTA, like conversion.
How to drive conversion?
Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts when it comes to the big ask? It sounds like it's like a conversion question. How do you ask people to buy?
Oh, how to ask people to buy. So oftentimes, what I found helpful is people want to buy and people want to convert when you speak to them specifically. So I think about it as part of the consumer journey. How do you build awareness for your product? How do you build consideration and interest using your proof points? And then how do you convert with them through the call to action?
Mhm.
Some people like to say, try this, buy now. those are part of the consumer journey that you have to lead, and it's not necessarily one meeting that you can typically get it at. So I think about CRM as multiple touch points. Some people say it takes 3 to 5, even up to 8 to get them to convert. So it's really about having that message and story arc, having that consumer journey, understanding where you need to educate them, what proof you need to support, and then how to drive that call to action and conversion as part of the big ask. So it's not just going straight to the end line, but it's having that story arc and having that relationship and then going at it again and again. So as you think about your messaging and your tools, you probably would need to start thinking at some point, how do you create the CRM application and when do you intersect it with your stakeholder, whether it's your investor or a partner or a consumer? I hope
Perfect.
that answers the question.
No, that's perfect. All right, well, we are almost at time, but Ada, thank you so much for joining us today to share all of these amazing, incredible insights. I'm sure we'll be sharing your contact information with the audience. So if people who are asking in the Q&A, how do we get in touch with you? We'll follow up with that. But Ada, what a pleasure to host you, and so nice to have you share your insights today. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Can you still see my screen, Colin?
Yep.
Okay, so thank you for all the thoughtful questions. If I didn't get to answer it, please feel free to reach out to me. But from what I'm listening from Colin's questions and your questions, most of these questions come back to the same idea. One clear message, adapt it with discipline, and refine it through listening. So this week, I asked you to do just 3 things: refine your anchor message, rewrite it for one audience, and update one real asset, whether it's a pitch, a page, or an email. So if there's one thing to remember, great messaging isn't about saying more. It's really about saying the right thing to the right audience at the right time. Thank you for your time and energy that you brought today. I hope this gave you a clearer way to think about messaging as leverage for your business. I'd love to stay in touch. So my personal information is listed here, and I look forward to hearing from you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ada. And for everyone on still, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to welcoming you to all of our upcoming webinars. Check those out in the chat and then also in the follow-up. But Ada, thank you again. And we look forward to welcoming you all online soon. Thanks again, everyone.
Thanks, Colin. Thanks, everyone. Okay. Okay, Colin, Michelle. Oh.